In this episode, we cover some controversial treatment methods. Touchstone Recovery Center is an abstinence-based program. However, we recognize that everyone's recovery journey is unique. Welcome to Into Action, brought to you by Touchstone Recovery Center. Today I'm going to talk with Lewis Edwards. Lewis has been a good friend of mine for the past going on 8 years. Lewis and I met in an odd place. Lewis and I met in prison. Both of us were incarcerated for crimes related to our drug addiction. And since I met Lewis, it hasn't been a perfect ride for me or for him, I don't think. I think we've been through quite a bit. But when we met in there was one thing that we had in common, and it was we were both trying to change our lives. Anyway, his story's a great one, and I'm happy to have him on today. Lewis, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Nolan, thank you, bro.
Yeah.
What a trip, right? For us to go from sitting in the day room in CMC 8 years ago to sitting here today doing a podcast for TRC.
Yep.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah. Pretty cool. So Lewis now he's our client advocate here at Touchstone Recovery Center. He's been a substance abuse counselor for adults and adolescents. He's always played a significant role in the culture here at Touchstone. And you know, the moment that I started working at Touchstone, so did Lewis. We've worked together for a few years now, and to think that we met, you know, in that place wearing a jumpsuit and not really knowing what we're going to do with our lives after we got out. It's cool that we're sitting here today. You know, it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. That the stuff we used to sit in the day room and kind of talk about is a reality now.
Yeah.
And you know, that's driving me crazy, Nolan. It makes me believe that, you know, dreams come true. That if you have a dream and you put in the work and you make the sacrifices, they come true, bro. All of this stuff, you know, us opening the sober living, and then it turned into 2 sober livings.
Now we need 3 sober livings?
Yeah. Me, you know, owning a home, just everything that's happening. It was all a dream, you know, 8 years ago, and now it's a reality. So now I'm setting bigger goals and dreams, which you are fully aware of.
Yeah.
You know, the podcast, the people who are listening aren't aware of it. But Nolan, it makes me believe, you know, not only in myself, but that our reality is made up of dreams. Everything we see was a dream in somebody's head before it became a reality. And so I'm trying to make my dreams a reality, bottom line.
Well, I know it's been a long ride to get here. Typically on Into Action, we talk about like people struggle with addiction, how they overcame it, what they're doing now to stay sober. So I'd like to get to know you a little better, because I know we haven't talked a whole lot about your childhood and the struggles you went through as a teenager, and then what led you to your incarceration. So tell me a little bit about like growing up in Long Beach and like your first experiences with people that struggle with drug addiction.
Well, you know, I was born in Los Angeles, California, and both my parents have struggled with addiction. My mother has been in and out of prison. I visited her in and out of prison. I used to actually sneak her weed into the visiting room.
As a kid?
As a kid. My father, when I was 8 years old, my father, high on angel dust, PCP, and some other drugs. He says he ate a lot of stuff. went into psychosis and killed my grandmother. Then he proceeded to go outside and he killed someone that was driving by in a car and wounded a third person. It was just two people driving by the house that day that he went into psychosis. He killed his own mom. He went outside, and he killed someone passing by in a car and tried to kill the third person, and they survived. He was so inebriated that, they took him to the hospital and then eventually took him to jail. He had no idea what he had done. He woke up in jail, and I imagine that one day, they told him that you killed your mother. For years, I didn't believe that story that he had actually went outside and killed someone else. I thought that it was something that I was told in order to find forgiveness for my father. I didn't talk to my father until I was in prison this time. And the time that we met in prison, I ended up doing a 14 years off an 18-year sentence. And that was my fourth time in prison. I was a career criminal. I grew up in a project called Springdale on the west side of Long Beach. And I joined a gang. I was raised by my grandmother. I'm the oldest of my siblings. I didn't have brothers and sisters, or a brother that I'm going to go get my brother.
Someone to look up to.
Yeah. I didn't have any male role models to look up to. I was raised by women. My grandmother, my auntie, my mother I'd live with her for about maybe 6 months here, and then I'd end up back with my grandmother or auntie. And so...
were they all using as well, like aunts and uncles and most of the people that you would stay with?
My grandmother never smoked a cigarette, never drove a car, never tasted alcohol before in her life. Really old school traditional. However, my mom has been on drugs. She was a stomped down crackhead, petty theft, in and out of jail for the majority of my life. She's turned her life around at least 25, 30 years ago.
Dang.
And it's such a blessing, man, to have she smoked weed every day, like Snoop Doggy Dogg. But her life looks the way that she wants it to. Do you know what I mean? So to tell me and I'm a substance use counselor, but for someone to tell me that my mom's life, she's not in recovery.
Or like it's a failure now just because she smokes
or it's
weed.
a failure because I say, I can curse here, right?
Of course.
Yeah, I say, you. I got my mom back. And it's for her to decide what she wants her life to look like. And if she's happy, I'm happy. And it's just a blessing. So back to the question you asked about my childhood. I joined a gang when I was about 15, 16 years old. And it's hard to explain that I still love them men to this day, bro.
It's kind of like, well, I'm assuming a lot, but you'd said that you didn't have a male role model, someone to look up to, and that it provided that, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I would assume.
And as I did the work in prison, just examining myself, I realized that I felt that being Lewis wasn't enough. I felt that it wasn't enough. Everybody was like Sea-Dog from West Coast Crips and Bumby from Insane and, all these different things. It was something bigger than them. And I was just Lewis. And that it wasn't enough. And I wanted to be a part of something or something bigger than myself. And I was missing something, bro. And I joined the gang. And I pushed that. I was a career criminal. I started selling drugs. My mother bought me my first $100 double up from prison. And I started selling drugs. And I sold drugs for the majority of my life. Sold drugs, and I'd do robberies. I'd rob anybody that sold drugs in the vicinity that I was selling drugs at. Up and down the coast, I operated drug houses and was a mid-level player for a really long time. And I say that to say what a blessing it is to see my life full circle. Maybe I've examined addiction from so many angles. My daughters struggle with addiction. As you're well aware, my oldest daughter graduated here at Touchstone from the help of you, Scotty, just wonderful people.
She's still
that
sober.
scholarshiped her. Yeah, she's still sober. She's still crazy too, but
I
can't
think
fix that with
we all have a bit of that in us.
Yeah, but yeah, my baby's still sober. I say that to say that I've seen addiction from almost every angle possible, from being addicted to my mom, my parents, my wife struggling with alcohol, my kids. And maybe I seen all that, Nolan, for this moment to prepare me to do this job. And it's deeper than that. This is not my job. This is my purpose, bro. I found my purpose. And I'm not saying that for you or for the cameras. I'm saying it because it's true. I found my purpose, man. Life makes sense now. I went from destroying communities to rebuilding communities.
Yep.
I went from operating drug houses to operating sober livings. I went from being part of the problem to being part of the solution. And I can feel the higher power moving through me sometimes. And it make me feel as tall as a building, Nolan, but it make me feel as small as a gnat at the same time, you know? It make me feel so insignificant. Like, why me? Why me? The loser that I am, the bad stuff that I've did, why choose me to work through? It's hard to put into words.
I was talking to Kenny about like the experiences that we all have, and you know the way that helps us relate to clients, and how it helps us do our jobs because we have that lived experience. And I think you just touched on it, is the fact that you've dealt with addiction from so many different angles, from personally to as a parent. I mean, you just said it. All of those angles you're gonna be able to use that to your advantage when you're trying to relate to someone, whether it's a client that comes through the doors asking for help, whether it's a parent of a person that's struggling. You know, that to have that lived experience from that many angles it just makes you a better counselor, and it makes you be able to do your job that much better. Because I know when I went to treatment, I trusted those who had lived it. You know, the person that I wanted to open up to and I wanted to talk to was somebody that I knew what they were talking about. Like, they had been arrested for a DUI. They had been kicked out of their house by their parents, or they had robbed their best friend's, you know, piggy bank when they were a kid, trying to, you know, all of these things that we do when we're active in our addiction. You know, those are things that we build up all this guilt and shame about. And, you know, to have someone sitting across a desk or sitting in a group room with me saying, I did that too, you know, but now look at me. Now I have my life's together. I'm married. I'm happy. I have a great job. Those successes, you know, and coming from someone who has all the same reasons to be ashamed and to feel guilt that I do, it was like inspiring to see that.
Absolutely.
So I would think that the people that we work with here at Touchstone, they see that in you, you know. When you were in prison, because like when I met you, you had already kind of turned that corner, you know, like you played a big part in like the way that I have changed my life. And just as like someone to talk to, someone to run ideas by, someone to lean on if I was struggling, as much as I could while we were in there, you know. But you and I both know, I did. I would come and talk to you. I'd ask you for advice. What got you to that point to where you wanted to turn your life around? Like, was it an aha moment? Was it something that came gradual, that you just little changes here and there? Tell me a little bit about that.
When I was arrested, I was sentenced to 14 years for armed robbery. When I first went to prison, I had no desire to change. I was still gangbanging. I had my wife bringing me drugs into the institution because we were married, and I was able to have family visits with her. I was still, active in the politics, the prison politics, and running with the Long Beach car, putting in work for the car. But they had this program at R.J. Donovan called Kairos. And these men come into the prison and they stay, from the time that the yard opens to the time that the yard closes, for 4 days in a row, you spend all the time with these men in the chapel. So as soon as the yard opens at 9, after breakfast, boom, we go right to the chapel. And we spend the whole time there until yard closed at 7 or 8 at that night in the chapel with these men. It's called Kairos. And the appeal, how they get people in there, is they have these homemade cookies, right? I mean, Nolan, these cookies were bomb.
I think anything that like remotely resembles outside food when you're in there is
it's
bomb.
Like gold, yes.
Yeah.
But no, you could taste the love of these cookies. I crap you not, bro. So they do this Kairos thing, I guess maybe every 4 or 6 months or whatever. And the last time they came, I got some of them cookies. I was like, oh, I'm going up in that joker, right? So I went for cookies. As crazy as that sounds, right? I went for cookies, but something happened. These men that came into the institution, they didn't come for money. They came there and they volunteered their time out of just love. And I seen these men and I said, shit, I want to be a man like that. I don't want to be Tony Montana anymore. I want to be Barack Obama. I used to watch movies and I always wanted to be the bad guy in the movie, Yeah. It looked like he had more fun. But something happened, bro. Something happened at that Kairos. At the end of and so we eat dinner with them. Their wives cook like lasagna or chicken, and we go in the chow hall and eat dinner. These men, it changed me.
So what are the topics about? Like I'm assuming that they're sharing like their own stories and like, the way that they turn their lives around. Am I on point with that? Or
yes, and it's a Christian-based program. Okay. And so, it's just it's a mentor program, a men mentoring program where they just encourage us to be men.
Like better versions of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. And so that happened, right? A couple weeks after I went to Kairos and I started feeling this change. This is 3 years into my sentence now. The detectives from Ventura came and asked me about a string of robberies. Now, I've been in prison 3 years with a 14-year sentence. They come and ask me about a string of robberies and some other stuff. And they found my DNA on a cigarette butt at the scene of a crime. And came up and asked me about it and said the MO fit for, some other crimes. To be honest with you, Nolan, I had committed that crime that my DNA was at. And I eventually pled guilty to it and was sentenced to 4 more years and 4 months on top of the 14 years I had, which gave me a total of 18 years and 3 months. But anyway, let me get back to the story. I'm in prison. They call me to visiting to where the goon squad be at. The goon squad is the prison police.
Yeah, the guys that wear black and come and get you if you break the rules.
Yeah, they're like the feds in prison or something, right? They surveillance you and then rush in and kick your door in. Well, they don't have to kick the door. They try to sneak up on you. And I was still doing things, So they called me to the office, to the goon squad, and I'm like, oh my goodness, did I leave something in the family visit room? I was taking ecstasy sometimes on my family visit, so I drink a bunch of water to flush myself. So I'm concerned, like, did they catch me lacking? Did they catch me slipping, right? And I go over there, and it wasn't, in fact, the goon squad. It was the detectives from Ventura, asking me about, these other crimes. And I immediately lawyered up. I'm a seasoned criminal by this time. This is my 4th time in prison at this point. I know what to do. I immediately say, I'm sorry you wasted your time driving out here, but I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with you without an attorney present. I go back to my cell, Nolan, and I got on my knees, and my knees wasn't low enough. I had never done this before, but I proned out on the cell. I laid flat on my face, and I couldn't even put the prayers in the words. I just moaned and cried. I couldn't even put the prayers in the words. I just moaned and cried. A little backstory is, in 1992, at the age of 19, that was the first time I was sent to prison. Not the first time arrested. I'd been in trouble as a juvenile and been to juvenile hall and stuff. But I was arrested at 19 for armed robbery. I was arrested again at 32 for armed robbery. And then 3 years after that, they were charging me with another armed robbery. So I was struck out. Rightfully struck out. No 2 violent felonies and then a regular felony. No, 3, dead bang, guilty of robberies. And I just prayed that he'd give me a chance to go home again. And that if he did, now let me go back. In Kairos, there's a ceremony, the closing ceremony, where they have these little wooden crosses, and they say, it's a quote from a scripture in the Bible, where I believe the Messiah or one of his disciples asked, who will go for me? Who will go and represent for me? And you say, I do, and you come up and you kneel, and they put the cross on you. They put the necklace over your neck. I remember standing there in that line. This is before the detectives came, and just feeling the spirit, something bigger than me. And I meant it when I went to kneel and said, I'll go. I meant it with all my heart. So back to me being on my cell floor and proned out. What I mean by proned out is laid flat on my face, arms outstretched. I couldn't even put the prayers in the words. I'm just moaning, bro. I got up off the floor and things started changing immediately.
Give me an example. Like you changed from
2
the
weeks,
inside?
Things started, it was like the blinders had been taken off my eyes. And I started realizing, for example, up until that point, I believed that I was a product of my environment, that I grew up in the projects, my parents, I'm a product of my environment. But then I realized that when I say the blinders came off, I realized I'm not a product of my environment. This is a product of my decisions. I'm doing this to my motherfucking self. It's not the man holding me down. I'm holding me down. I'm wanting something good, in one hand and then I'm shitting in the other. I'm sitting in prison because I deserve to be sitting in prison. This is a humane way to deal with the type of man that I was. I deserve to be in prison. I can look back at that and I'm grateful now. 3 weeks later, Nolan, when I say it happened gradually but fast, 3 to 4 weeks later, I went to the yard and I told the Long Beach car, the homies, I'm not with y'all no more, man. When y'all go, I'm not going, bro. I can't do what's right for me and my family and do what's right for the Long Beach car. I got to choose, and I'm choosing my family. And if you a friend of mine or a homeboy and you see me making that decision and you mad about that, you're not my homeboy. You never was. You the enemy. Draw a line in the sand. I'm taking all fades about it. I came to the yard today ready to die, just like I came to the yard yesterday. I'm just ready to die for something different, bro.
How'd they take that?
Nolan, you know how many problems I had? And I stayed on the main line. But you know how many problems I had? This was 3 years into my sentence. I did 11 more years. You know how many problems I had because of that for them 11 years? You know how many people came up to me and disrespected me or tried to do something to me because I stopped, I denounced running with the car? Do you know how many times that happened?
No.
Not once.
They probably respected that.
Not once, Nolan.
Yeah.
But before I was making that decision, I was scared. Because I say, man, if I start running with the car, then everybody got action at me. People that I did stuff to with the car, now I have no protection. Anybody could get me. You know, the whites can get me, the Mexicans can get me, the Compton car can get me, the Hoover car can get me, you know, and I have nobody. But I was reading the Bible. Through my stay, I studied a lot of different religions. But in one part of the Bible, it said, he was telling the Jews, just go, they was going to fight some giants or something. And he told them, just go down there and march around. And they was like, man, they were scared. They were shook. I felt it in my spirit. Just go and do what I told you, Lewis. I'm going to do the rest. I'm going to move the crowd. They do with you. I'm going to smash them. Don't even trip. So I believe, Nolan, that if someone did try to do to me, and I said this several times, a lot, that angels would come and fight on my behalf. I was willing to die for a gang all these years. Why be scared to die now? For my family, for what's right, for doing the right things, for being a good human being. And I carried that. I didn't have not one problem, Nolan. Actually, a lot of men respected my decision because I think it's a lot more of us that wanted to make that decision, but it's scary in there to be by yourself. You know?
Yeah, I do.
It's scary in there. It took more courage for me to stand alone in prison than it ever did for me to run with the car, bro.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that's what happened. That's when the change started. I started going to school. I got my degree in social and behavioral sciences while I was incarcerated. I went to every SAP program they had they started shutting them down at different institutions. I moved to another institution. If they had it, I went there too.
SAP is the substance
abuse programs, yes. And you know, in the substance abuse programs in there, everybody wants to be a pimp and a gangster, and you know, everybody wants to be hard. So expressing my real feelings or people just, you know, being vulnerable was really frowned upon in there. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to look weak. I didn't care, Nolan. If me being vulnerable makes you think I'm weak, that's even to my advantage. Because you're going to come at me like I'm weak, and by the time you figure out I'm not, it's too late. You dig? So I started seeing the power group. I didn't talk this much before that last time in prison. But through talking to group and getting to know myself and just processing everything that I've been through, it opened me up, man. And I started seeing the power of group, and I didn't care who was laughing or thought anything. I didn't care what anybody else. I started changing, bro. I started becoming the man that I was always meant to be. And I think that maybe everything that's happened to this moment, Nolan, was supposed to happen this way. And I'm grateful for it. I've come to terms with everything that has happened to this very moment I sit here in this chair, and I'm at peace with it. You know? So when did it change? That's when a light switch went off, bro, when I got up off that floor. And then I started looking around and was like, oh, man, I'm tripping. And I started changing.
So you had mentioned you went back to school while you were in there. I know you're still pursuing a higher education while you're out here. What are you studying now?
I'm working on my bachelor's in psychology. So
almost done with that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Nolan, all right. So I go to school. I get my degree in social and behavioral science. They let me out 2 months early to go to an MCRP. Now, when I was in there, I was thinking about maybe when I got out, I was thinking about becoming a drug and alcohol counselor. I wasn't all the way sold yet. I was also thinking about truck driving because I needed money immediately, right? And I got a couple friends that do it. But when I was released 60 days early to an MCRP, and I'm in an orange paper jumpsuit, they let us off the van. I walk into this place, you know, it's breathtaking because I'm free, somewhat free, right? I walk into this place, and there's the guy sitting behind the counter is a guy I used to work out with every day in Donovan, a lifer. He was a lifer.
He was free.
He's free, and he looked good than a I mean, he was shining, man. And I said, Norm, what the hell you doing here, bro? I was blown away. He said, Louis, I work here, man. I said, you work here? What you do? He said, I'm a substance use counselor. I said, oh shit, I'm gonna be a substance use counselor.
Because he looked so happy.
It was what you were talking about, Nolan. He's like me, and if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
He's like me, or worse. If he can do it, I can do it, and help people that's going through the same thing I've been through. I thought it was amazing. And so I was there for 60 days before I got out. The first 30 days, blackout, you can't have a phone, you can't leave. As soon as my 31st day, I got a job at a warehouse in Carson.
I think that's when I had contacted you shortly thereafter.
You did.
We've been in touch since.
You did.
Yeah.
And I got a job at the warehouse, and I worked that. I had made up my mind. I'm going to school to become a substance use counselor. I got the job at the warehouse. I got out November 26th. I had that job at the warehouse making $13.75. I kept that job until school started. As the day that school started at Long Beach City College for drug and alcohol counseling, I quit my job and I started going to school full time. I did that. The first semester I did at Long Beach, I got straight A's. I said, oh shit, it's on, right? Then I went to Santa Barbara because I had to parole to LA first. Brandy and my kids was in Santa Barbara. I did the first semester in Long Beach, and then I transferred to Santa Barbara. And I was a full-time student. And I was washing dishes in the scullery on campus, and I loved it. One of the best jobs I've ever had.
Why?
It felt good. It felt good to be on campus.
Was that and sorry to interrupt, was that your first employment outside of legal employment? Or did you work back when you were Like before you went to prison or after at any point?
Yes, I had worked before. I've only had a handful of jobs. But yeah, it wasn't the first job, but I never took jobs serious.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Nolan. You asked why did I enjoy it so much? I don't know. I was on campus.
Yeah, that
they
makes
treated
sense.
me well. I was the best dishwasher to ever come through there. They spoiled me. They really just made me feel that they appreciated me. You know?
Yeah.
And it was great. So you're about to enter the story here. So I'm going to school, and you know, I won't go into. I'm gonna leave some stuff out. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm going to school, and it comes time for the internship, where I need to find an internship where a place that will allow me to work and gain experience, right, for free.
Yep.
I tried every place in Santa Barbara.
As earning your substance, like certification to become a substance use counselor, you got to do a ton of intern hours.
Absolutely.
All right. So you're looking for that.
And you have to do so many, even at the college, the city college level.
Yeah.
I think it was 350 or something for that class.
Yep.
So I tried everywhere in Santa Barbara. Nowhere would let me work for free, bro. And so I had to drop that class. And it's a class you need to graduate. Mm-hmm. I had to drop it. And they only do it once a year. So I had to drop it, pick up some other classes, and try again a year later. It really kind of made me feel defeated. Well, no, I can't say that. It only slowed me down because I have the attitude that I'm not going to, the only way to stop me is to kill me from pursuing my dreams. And so, long story short, a year later, the internship is coming up again. And I get a call from you, bro. This is after we had went to your I had come up here to your wedding in Hanford. I get a call from you. And you say, Lewis, come up here and help me open a spire in Fresno. And I said, Fresno? Bro, it smells like cow shit out there. I just went to your wedding.
It's the smell of money, man. It's the smell of money. My dad used to always tell me that growing up.
I was like, Fresno? I don't know, bro. Fresno? Fresno?
That was what, 3.5 years ago? Over 3.
Has it been that long?
I think so.
No, I think we're coming up on 3 here in July.
Okay. You might be right.
Yeah, I think we're coming up on 3 here in
That phone
July.
call happened at least 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And I came up here with the family and to see you, and we hung out. And when we went home to Santa Barbara, I said, Brandy, I miss Fresno. And she said, Kiari said that too. I said, I'm doing it. We're gonna do it. So let me tell you what that experience. And so I came up here. It was just me and you, Nolan. I'm the only counselor, so I was the lead counselor, right? But let me tell you what the message that gave me. When we got to Aspire, you asked me to do a bio. And in the bio, I don't know if you remember.
I do.
I had put that, I'm an ex-gang member.
You asked me if can I tell the truth?
Yeah, can I tell the truth, or you want me to do some fluffy shit here? I prefer the truth, and so I gave the truth, and Aspire, y'all took it and put it on the website. I couldn't get an internship in Santa Barbara because of my past, because I was on parole. Yet I come here and I'm the lead counselor, paid. What that told me is I have value. Me, I don't have to put on fluff or act like I'm somebody other than me. But that me, even with all the messed up stuff that I've done in the past, I have value. I have value. And that was powerful. that was powerful. I don't have to fit into a mold, but that Lewis Edwards, have value. And I share it all the time, that Facebook thing where the guy buys the car, he gives it to his daughter. She says, how much is it worth? She takes it to the pawn shop. They say 500. He says, okay, take it to the car lot. She takes it to the car lot. They say 5,000. He said, okay, take it to this car club across town. She takes it to the car club across town. They say, we'll give you 50,000. And so is life, Nolan. If you're not valued where you are, it's not that you have no value. You're just in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that you don't have value. It's just you're in the wrong fucking place. Somewhere you're valued as you.
To your spot now here at Touchstone. And I know for the last 3 years working as a counselor, it's kind of evolved for you. I think it's because you're a natural at it. So the clients like gravitate towards you. They always want to be on Lewis's caseload, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think it's, you had touched on it already. It's like you are your authentic self. So when you communicate with the clients, they see that. I mean, people can smell BS a long way out, you know, and I appreciate the fact that you don't ever come with that stuff. You're always yourself. You always, you know, you're honest. But then even if someone needs to hear something that they don't want to hear, you're going to tell them the truth. You're going to tell them exactly what you feel the truth is.
With love. Yeah,
with a little bit of love sometimes. So no, I don't know if there was a question. I think I would like to know what you do to maintain your sobriety these days. Like I know your struggle with addiction was years long. So what do you do to maintain your sobriety? Like I know last week when I talked to Kenny, I know he's a big advocate of the 12 steps. I know that keeps me sober. There's some people that have other routines that keep them sober. What do you do?
Nolan, the simplest answer that I can give you is I'm working on being the best version of myself daily. And the best version of myself just don't include cocaine and alcohol.
Yeah.
One of my teachers told me that, don't let the job become your sobriety. I call bullshit on that. Doing this job, finding my purpose is what keeps me sober. Working on being the best version of myself, Nolan. All the other stuff has happened by proxy. Me sitting here with you, us opening sober livings, clients liking me or not liking me. All of that is a byproduct of me working on being the best version of myself. Do you get it? Daily. Daily making sure that because I've stumbled across this in prison. My actions need to be a reflection of my goals and my morals. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I don't have to be happy about the actions. I don't have to smile about the actions, but my actions, I need to be guided by my morals, my principles, and my goals. And so that's what I do every freaking day. Sometimes I'm smiling about it, whistling about it. Other days, I'm not.
Other days just
but I know
grinding.
I know that you could feel some type of way about like you love something or love someone, but if you don't make the connection that your actions need to be a reflection of that love, then that shit'll wither. It's an action word. It's hard for me to explain. I hope I'm kind of making sense.
You are.
But I maintain my sobriety with action, bro. Not with, and one philosophical, I guess, explanation, and that is working on being the best version of myself. But nothing outdoes action. Letting my actions be a reflection of my appreciation for the life that I have, and that I'm evolving. Because this is only the beginning.
Yeah. 3 years isn't a long time. You know, it feels like we've been working together for a hell of a lot longer than 3 years. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this is only it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate you sharing your story with everybody. I love you, man. You're doing a hell of a job.
I love you too, man. You know, like I said, think about it, bro. 8 years ago, we were sitting in a day room in prison, watching the guys fight over the TV. Remember that?
Yep.
And now we're sitting here. With all the blessings that we have in our lives. And that's pretty amazing, bro.
I agree.
And my sobriety, it wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be possible without it. So I'm enormously grateful for the life that I have today. And I show that gratefulness with my actions. Yeah. If I could choose somebody to be on this journey with, I choose you, bro. My dog, man.
Yeah, it's been working out pretty damn good. Yeah. You level me out. That's, you know, I'm a little hot-headed. You're smooth.
You got good follow-through, though. Your follow-through is amazing. and figuring shit out, you figure some shit out fast, bro. And you'll follow through. I'll throw an idea out there, and I'll throw it up, and you'll smack. You'll knock it out the park. And I love you, man.
Love you too, Lewis. Thanks, man.